VoyageVault presents the Colosseum. This massive ancient arena embodies the power and drama of the Roman Empire at its peak. When it was built in 80 AD, the Colosseum was unlike anything the world had ever seen. This architectural wonder could seat over 50,000 spectators who gathered to watch epic gladiator battles, wild animal fights, mock sea battles, and public executions. In this video, we'll explore the fascinating history behind the Colosseum. We'll learn about how it was constructed using advanced engineering techniques and the work of tens of thousands of slaves. We'll discover the different spectacles and games that took place on its floor for centuries. And we'll look at how the Colosseum has continued to inspire artists, writers, and people around the globe for nearly 2,000 years after the fall of Rome. Construction and architecture. The dawn of the Colosseum. The awe-inspiring Colosseum that we see today was born out of Emperor Vespasian's bold vision to construct an arena surpassing any other in sheer size and spectacle. After the despised previous Emperor Nero's death, Vespasian reclaimed the land in central Rome once occupied by Nero's enormous private palace and artificial lake. On this prime site adjacent to the Roman Forum, Vespasian commissioned the building of a monumental new amphitheater for the people of Rome, one that would stand for centuries. The ingenious engineering and design of the Colosseum represented major innovations in Roman architecture. Its curved elliptical shape allowed for excellent visibility from almost every seat. The arena itself was massive, measuring over 180 meters long and 150 meters wide, an enormous stage for gladiatorial combats and public spectacles. The arena was surrounded by 4 stacked stories of arched facades that could accommodate up to 50,000 cheering spectators. Beneath the arena floor lay a complex system of underground rooms, elevators, and passageways known as the Hypogeum. This ingenious backstage area allowed hundreds of gladiators, exotic animals, scenery, and props to be lifted in and out of view quickly through an intricate network of traps and lifting mechanisms, adding an element of surprise. Overhead, a velarium, or enormous retractable canvas awning, could provide shade for thousands of spectators on hot and sunny days. The velarium was attached to huge wooden masts affixed to the top of the Colosseum. The structure itself was a marvel of Roman engineering creativity. A complex system of arches and vaults supported the structure's substantial weight and allowed it to remain standing intact through several strong earthquakes over the centuries. The imposing exterior facade stood 4 stories tall and was decorated with ornate columns, statues, and friezes. High-quality building materials like travertine stone, tufa, concrete, and brick feature prominently throughout. An estimated 100,000 cubic meters of precious travertine was quarried and transported from Tivoli to construct the Colosseum. The massive project required several years of meticulous planning and effort to fully realize Vespasian's theatrical vision. Construction officially began in the year 72 AD under the supervision of architects and engineers like Sextus Julius Frontinus and Haterius Nepos. The old artificial lake was drained and extensive foundations were laid to support the amphitheater's massive weight. Laborers excavated deep tunnels below ground level to create the Hypogeum underground network. Shipments of lustrous white travertine stone were carted in from Tivoli's quarries. Teams of masons and bricklayers built up the external facade, arcades, and seating areas year after year. Elaborate decorative statuary and friezes were hoisted into place. After nearly a decade of constant work, the world beheld the completed Colosseum in 80 AD, a gleaming new stage for imperial power and drama. Vespasian did not live to see his ambitious vision fully realized, but his Colosseum would stand for eternity as an engineering triumph. The games and gladiators, the Colosseum in its prime. Once completed, the Colosseum hosted a spectacular array of events and spectacles, from gladiator battles to reenactments of famous Roman military victories. The games served as bloody entertainment for the masses, but also carried political and cultural significance. At the inaugural opening ceremony in 80 AD, Emperor Titus staged 100 days of non-stop extravagant games for the people of Rome. Spectators were dazzled by gladiator fights, animal hunts, battle reenactments, and mythological dramatizations involving hundreds of performers. Exotic creatures from the far reaches of the empire, like lions, tigers, bears, ostriches, hippos, and crocodiles, met gory fates in the Colosseum's arena. Gladiator matches were the main attraction, cementing the Colosseum's special place in Roman culture. Gladiators were typically slaves, criminals, or prisoners of war trained to stage exciting combats, often to the death. Skilled gladiators who survived multiple fights could become celebrities throughout the empire. Combatants specialized in particular fighting styles and weaponry. The murmillo mimicked a Roman soldier with a sword and shield. The Thrax wore light armor and a small shield modeled on Thracian warriors. The heavily armed hoplomachus donned Greek-style armor and wielded a lance and dagger. Audiences cheered for their favorites as bookkeepers handled gambling on the outcomes. Animal hunts known as venations were another highlight. These staged hunts featured animals set loose in the arena to be slaughtered by specialized beast-fighting gladiators called bestiarii. In an impressive display of wealth and power, the Colosseum's cages contained creatures from Africa and the Middle East, including elephants, hippopotami, lions, crocodiles, panthers, leopards, and ostriches. The hunts demonstrated Rome's far reach and mastery over nature and exotic lands. Naumachii were mock sea battles choreographing ship combat and infantry clashes on a flooded Colosseum floor. Complex hydraulic systems filled the arena with water for the reenactments of famous Roman naval victories. Naumachii required massive coordination and resources, but allowed audiences to vividly relive historic battles. The lavish spectacles reinforced key aspects of Roman culture and society. Politically, the accessibility of the events to all Roman citizens demonstrated a sharing of wealth and privilege. The exotic animals and sets evoked Roman military might and domination over territories abroad. Gladiators battling with courage were seen as exemplifying valued Roman virtues. The Colosseum Games provided social cohesion and political legitimacy by tying citizens to the state and its victories. Yet we must also view the games ethically as a site of exploitation. Gladiators were typically slaves, prisoners, or condemned people forced to fight to avoid death. Many were killed or severely injured even if they survived a particular match. Animal cruelty was also immense, for the sole purpose of entertainment. The games reveal a complex Roman psyche that celebrated courage, military triumph, and power, yet relied on slavery, violence, and environmental exploitation. Though treated harshly, gladiators occupied an intriguing place in Roman society. Some successful gladiators who won freedom became celebrities sought after for endorsements. Graffiti throughout Pompeii attests to their stardom. Gladiators were sex symbols and bad boy heartthrobs. However, they were still considered social outcasts forbidden from political life. This tension speaks to larger divisions in Roman class structure and ethics. By satiating the Roman appetite for grand spectacle and public brutality, the Colosseum served a crucial cultural and political role at the height of the empire's power. Its games highlighted Roman military prowess, wealth, and control over nature, but at a steep ethical cost. Religion and politics, the symbolism of power. In ancient Rome, politics and religion were inextricably intertwined, and the Colosseum stood at the center of this relationship. Roman emperors used the spectacles at the Colosseum as a tool to shape their public image, appease the masses, and reinforce their divine right to rule. The inaugural games sponsored by Titus in 80 AD lasted 100 days, an immense span that demonstrated the abundance and generosity of the empire. Opening festivities were accompanied by religious sacrifices to ensure favor from the gods. When Titus died just 2 years later, his successor Domitian continued the Colosseum spectacles as a means of gaining public approval and solidifying imperial power. Games often commemorated military victories and reminded citizens of the empire's strength. Religion pervaded the proceedings in the form of rituals and ceremonies. Shows often began with inauguration rites and sacrifices to the gods. Priests oversaw devotions to the spirits of the dead. Statues of patron deities like Jupiter and Venus overlooked the Colosseum arena. The emperor himself was tied to religious dimensions of the spectacles. He sat in a special imperial box seating area called the pulvinar, aligned with the Colosseum's major axis for optimal views. From there he could decide the fates of gladiators and signal for combats to commence. The emperor's decisions quite literally determined life or death. The pulvinar's central location affirmed the emperor's supposed semi-divine status and ties to the gods. Early Christians were among those condemned to die in the Colosseum, cementing its status as a place of imperial authority triumphing over religious outsiders. However, Christian use of the space increased over time as the religion expanded in Rome. During the medieval era, the Colosseum was consecrated as a Christian shrine to the martyrs killed there. Small chapels were constructed within the ruined walls for prayer and memorials. In the 18th century, Pope Benedict XIV sanctioned religious processions through the arena. The Pope also declared the Colosseum a sacred site for early Christian martyrdom. He instituted the Stationis Orbis to commemorate Christ's Passion each Good Friday. This tradition continues today, though now the Pope leads only a small prayer rather than a procession within the arena. The Colosseum's Christian rebranding was vital for preservation efforts in later centuries. Yet not all saw the Colosseum as holy. During the 16th and 17th centuries, church officials considered destroying the arena completely since it symbolized pagan sacrifice and brutal spectacle from Rome's pagan past. But the Colosseum's role as an early Christian site of martyrdom ultimately spared it from demolition. Today the layers of meaning are visible in the form of a modern cross erected on the top floor. The arena floor that once hosted spectacle and slaughter is now consecrated ground, with a small Christian shrine at its heart honoring the early Christian martyrs. Ancient pagan history collides with later repurposing by rulers of church and state. Decline and disuse, the fall of the Colosseum. By the late 400s AD, the once mighty Roman Empire was in decline, and the Colosseum along with it. This monumental arena fell into disuse and disrepair as funds dried up, games ceased, and disasters took their toll. The lavish spectacles had bankrupted many later emperors. With the rise of Christianity, animal sacrifices and brutal entertainment also became less socially acceptable. By the early medieval era, gladiator fights had ceased completely. The final animal hunts were held in the 6th century, ending over 500 years of tradition. Only small executions and the occasional trial by combat continued sporadically. With Rome's infrastructure decaying and population dwindling, the Colosseum was no longer a viable event space. Severe earthquakes damaged the complex stone arches, thwarting the structure in 484 and 508 AD. Though still standing, major collapse had occurred. Without its original purpose, the Colosseum became repurposed for new uses in the early medieval period. As a huge enclosed space in the center of Rome, the abandoned arena was too valuable to simply leave. Its labyrinth of underground passages morphed into storage cellars, workshops, blacksmiths' forges, and taverns frequented by thieves and prostitutes. Above ground, the ruined walls sheltered makeshift one-story homes, set into the remaining arches. Vegetation overgrew the crumbling stonework. For centuries, the Colosseum became a quarry as Romans continually stripped its walls and supports to reuse building materials elsewhere. The marble cladding and iron braces were removed for use in other monuments and churches. Eventually decrees were passed to protect the arena, but substantial damage was already done. In medieval times, the Colosseum also took on a religious dimension, with the addition of small chapels used for Christian worship services and processions. Some frescoes were commissioned to portray stories of the early Christian martyrs who died there. But at the same time, church officials viewed the pagan Colosseum as a symbol of idolatry. Proposals were made to turn it into a bullring, fortify it as a castle, or destroy it entirely. Natural disasters accelerated the structural decline. Fires ignited by lightning strikes and arson engulfed the wooden interior remaining in the 9th and 10th centuries. Several earthquakes rocked the arena from the 12th to 14th centuries, weakening the already unstable walls and arches. Although still impressive in sheer size and scope, the once glittering Colosseum was only a skeleton of its former glory and purpose. It lay half abandoned and overgrown through medieval times, as nature slowly reclaimed the man-made wonder. Restoration and legacy, the Colosseum today. For centuries after its fall, the deteriorated Colosseum was seen as an eyesore by some and a treasure by others. Eventually, the cultural significance of this ancient arena motivated major restoration to preserve it as an architectural wonder and vital heritage site. In the 17th century, Pope Benedict XIV banned the use of the Colosseum as a quarry and consecrated it as a Christian holy site, helping prevent further damage. Early preservation efforts in the 1800s focused on structural supports, removing vegetation, and regulations to protect the ruins. A major earthquake in 1349 had completely collapsed the outer south side, so buttresses were added to reinforce weakened walls. In the 20th century, significant strides were made to restore the Colosseum's former glory. Benito Mussolini's government provided funds for major renovations between the 1930s and 1950s, motivated in part by fascist propaganda valorizing Rome's imperial past. Damaged medieval and Renaissance-era additions were removed. Modern technology allowed new materials to replace missing or unstable sections. Ongoing restoration continues today by Italian officials and archaeologists. The exterior was cleaned of centuries of grime in the 1990s, uncovering original brickwork and arches hidden below. Advanced underground surveys and excavations continuously uncover fascinating new artifacts and insights into arena life. Recent projects installed an elevating floor system in the arena which can reveal the labyrinth of rooms and tunnels beneath. While some criticize the extensive renovations as destroying its authenticity, most view these efforts as crucial to preventing decay and collapse. Striking a balance between conservation and access remains an ongoing challenge. The Colosseum today appears much as it did in its 2nd century heyday, allowing visitors a glimpse into its former use and glory. The iconic Colosseum remains a must-see tourist destination, attracting over 7 million visitors annually. It is one of Italy's most popular attractions and has become a globally recognized symbol of Rome, despite the many other ancient sites throughout the city. Images of the Colosseum feature extensively in films, commercials, and television set in Rome. It epitomizes the grandeur and brutality of the Roman Empire for popular culture. As an architectural feat, the Colosseum also continues to inspire modern stadium design. Its efficient wide-arched pedestrian exits were mimicked in 20th century arenas. The central elliptical shape provides ideal spectator sightlines and acoustics, an endlessly replicated sports venue blueprint. The Colosseum's rich story and iconic design will no doubt continue to awe and inspire reflection for generations to come. Though nearly 2,000 years have passed since its first games, this great arena remains both a marvel and a cautionary tale. The Colosseum stands today as an enduring symbol of both the glory and brutality of ancient Rome. In this video, we explored the arena's construction, the spectacles it hosted, its religious and political symbolism, its post-Roman decline, and its extensive restoration. This monument continues to captivate and challenge us with its epic history. If you enjoyed learning about the fascinating story behind this iconic landmark, remember to subscribe for more videos diving into the history of unique sites around the world. Thank you for joining us on this journey back in time. From VoyageVault, stay curious travelers.